Now for these problems, it just says solve. So now our answer, since we're in the complex numbers section, means we're probably going to get complex numbers as answers. Doesn't matter, that's fine. Essentially what we're going to do here is just square root both sides, right? That's normally what we would do. And then I'm going to get an x on the left. And on the right here, don't forget your plus and minus, I get the square root of negative 36. So this is now where we're going to deal with that idea of, remember when we have a square root of a negative number? It's I get an I out of it, right? So this is plus or minus I square root 36. And then the square root of 36 now is 6. So x equals plus or minus 6. All right. So there's our answer for this number A here. Now for the next one. Essentially, I'm going to have to distribute my 3 through, move the 7 over. So that's what I'm going to do here. So that's going to be 9x squared minus 6x equals negative 7. Then I'm going to add 7 to both sides. Now again, an indicator here that tells me I'm moving everything over to the same side is the fact that I have a squared and then I also have an x. So when I have an x squared and an x together, I move everything over the same side. Because if I just had an x squared and a number, then I could move my x squareds on one side, my numbers on the other, and then square root both sides, kind of like I did with part A. So for this one then, that's the way I'd look at it. And since I have an x squared and an x, that tells me I'm moving everything over to the same side. So this is going to be 9x squared minus 6x, because I can't add those together because they're not like terms, plus 7 equals 0. So this is what we have for this one. So now we're just going to use a Pythagorean theorem. Now keep in mind here, well, before I go there, keep in mind here that I had to put this in descending powers. So make sure you do that. So the x squared, x, and number. That should be my form for any of these equations when I'm dealing with them in this way. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use the quadratic formula. So that is x equals, now keep in mind, this is for ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we need a 0 over here in order to use this formula. So then that tells me my a is 9, my b is negative 6, and my c is 7. I'll say it again. That's how it matches up. Now it's not the x's or x squareds, it's only the numbers in front of those variables. That is a, b, and c. Okay. And the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So then what that means for us, and I'll write these down here. So my a is 9, my b is negative 6, and my c is 7. So now that's going to be x equals, and then negative 6. And I'm just going to write that all in there so you guys can see it all together. And make sure when you use your b inside here, since it's a square, put it in parentheses. Makes the difference. Okay, so minus 4, and a is 9, and c is 7. And that's all over 2 times 9. Oops. Okay, so there we go. That's our first step, just writing it all in there. It's a lot of work to get that all in there. Okay then, so for our next step then, we're going to just simplify this a little bit. So that's going to not be negative anymore. It's just going to be a positive 6. Because we get a negative times a negative is positive. Now in here, I'm going to streamline a little bit. That's going to be 36 positive. And then this here is 9, 7, and 4 is 252. And that's all over 18. So now for my next step here, I'm going to have to take that 36 and 52. I should say negative 252 or minus 252. And that's going to be 6 plus or minus square root negative 216 over 18. Okay, now I use that one property I told you guys about before. 6 plus or minus I square root 216 over 18. And then, now 216 does have a perfect square in it. It's not a perfect square itself, but it does have one. So I would have to find that. So one way you could do it is, you could do a factor tree if you wanted to. And say, hey, I think 6 goes into that. Well, that was a good guess. And that's 36. Well, that doesn't normally work, but that works. That is a perfect square, so I actually can stop there. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this as 6 plus or minus I square root 36 square root 6 all over 18. And this is actually going to be a 6 now. Okay, so that's going to be 6 plus or minus I, 6 square root 6 over 18. Now again, I'm going back to that idea of, does anything go into all three of these terms? And hopefully you say, yes, it does. So then what that's going to mean for us is, for all three of those, I can actually pull a 6 out of them. Hopefully you caught that. So then that means for our final answer, that's going to be a 1, because 6 goes into 6 one time, plus or minus, and 6 goes into this 6 one time, so it's going to be I square root 6 over, and 6 goes into 18 3 times. So there's our answer for the second one. Okay, now again, you have to remember that you're going to have to simplify these answers too once you get them. You can't just write them out and say, I'm done. That's as far as I can go. Like, you wouldn't stop here. You would have to keep going further to get the final answer.